Earnestly podcast coming to you on May 11th, 2022. Again, we continue our daily experience here. Again, we've been doing daily for the last week or so. How long are we doing this? I don't know, but we're going to continue doing it. Obviously, it's easier to do it right now because there's a lot going on in the world of sports. Obviously, NBA playoffs going on, NHL playoffs going on. You got a lot of things to talk about, in the world of pop culture, the world of politics, you name it. There's so much things to talk about. I mean, at some point, I'm probably going to end up stuck not doing daily podcasts at the point right now, but the NBA playoffs definitely deserve that kind of attention. Of course, this podcast, you subscribe on any podcast catcher, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. And by the way, if I sound really clear today, if I sound clear today, number one, I'm feeling a little better. Allergies are clearing up a little bit. My eyes still a little bit itchy, but definitely this is the best day I've had in about 11 days. I've been staying on. My wife's been telling me, listen, stay on your allergy meds, please, because this is part of the reason why you have these attacks lately. So I'm gonna trust her now on this one, especially. But yeah, I'm also almost in the studio too, especially. I'm just in the studio. I'm actually recording from the studio. I'm at the pool like I was yesterday with the kids. But there's a lot to talk about here, especially NBA playoffs. Obviously, both of them 1 seeds win last night. Suns and Heat. They're important game fives. Joel Embiid frustrated with the MVP results. Jeanie Buss also frustrated with the Lakers. Apple iPods are done ski. Also, we talk about a topic that Eric Alper, very popular Twitter user, put a nice, interesting post out there I want to get into about celebrity deaths. Michelle Beadle, actually, remember ESPN Michelle Beadle? She's back in the media again. I just noticed that. I've been listening to a couple her appearances in recent weeks and stuff. I want to get into that a little bit. Ukraine, of course, Ukraine-Russia thing's still going on. I mean, it may not be the biggest thing on Twitter right now, but it's still going on right now, and the House has approved another package to send to Ukraine. We'll touch on that in a second. And a actual Mount Rushmore WWE legend just followed me on Twitter this week, and I'll tell you who that is in a second. First, both number ones bounce back. That's the title of today's podcast because both number one seeds in the Western and Eastern Conference, that is the Miami Heat as well as the Phoenix Suns, they both win their games. Game fives, important game fives, both in blowouts as well too. Although the Heat game was actually never really close, to be honest with you. Although if you were with me watching the game, you wouldn't think that the way I was acting, it was actually a blowout. But again, I'm also invested. That's why I probably act the way I do. So the Heat take a 3-2 lead against the Sixers right now in game 5. Obviously, game 6 on Thursday. How I feel, honestly, I still think the Sixers win game 6. We'll get a game 7 if the Heat win in 7. I actually had originally had Heat in 7. So I think I'll go with my pick. I pray to God I'm wrong on Thursday. I hope the Heat find a way to get it done. Obviously on Thursday, take care of that series, go to the conference finals, and go from there. And obviously you saw the 7 players double figures last night. Even Duncan Robinson got some burn last night. Not a lot of burn, but a little bit of burn. But Eric Spoelstra really got back to what got him to the dance. He got back. Obviously, Kyle Lowry didn't play last night. He's probably going to be out for the rest of the series. You saw Gabe Vincent get playing time last night. He played fantastic. Caleb Martin played great yesterday, too. So the pieces of guys, the development guys that got the Heat to number 1 seed, who didn't get minutes in recent games, back in the lineup this week in Game 5, and you see why they should be playing more minutes. Jimmy Butler, of course, spectacular game, 23 points, obviously, but a lot of that was in the first quarter, which I believe he set the tone in the first quarter for the Heat. So the Heat take a 3-2 lead. Joel Embiid re-injured his eye last night, too, especially during the game. And not only that, tweaked his back. So he was kind of not really himself yesterday, too. James Harden was back to his disappointing self also as well, too. Tyrese Maxey didn't play well last night either. So the Heat got on a break yesterday, too. Obviously, we'll see if Game 6 wasn't the same way. Will Joel Embiid even play Game 6? I mean, he's a warrior. I mean, I am not a Sixers fan by no means, but that guy is a warrior. That guy is a warrior. You got to respect him. He's out there with a torn thumb. Torn thumb, obviously, which he sustained in the first series. Obviously, the eye issue now, with that, and then now the back issue. I expect to play Game 6, but he's probably going to be obviously duct taped up and all that for Game 6. Again, I still believe my predictions right now. I may change for tomorrow's podcast. We'll see what happens. I'm going to go Sixers in Game 6, but we'll see what happens there. Also, Game 5, the other number 1 seed, the Western Conference, Phoenix Suns bounced back in a big way, and they beat the Dallas Mavericks by 20, or by 30 actually. Was it by 30 points last night? I think it was. Anyway, in a game that they had to have. I think I just like the Eastern Conference. I think Dallas won Game 6, but we'll see what happens there. Again, one of those games, one of those nights where both number 1 seeds had to bounce back, and they did. And they got to respect that. And we'll see what happens Game 6 tomorrow night for both teams. Should be a fascinating next 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours now, how things run down in the NBA playoffs. This has been a fantastic playoffs. Obviously tonight's Game 5 of Sixers and Bucks. I'm taking the Bucks tonight to win on the road. We'll see how that works out. Actually, no. So I've had Bucks in 7. I'm going to reverse that. I'm taking Boston tonight for Game 5. Milwaukee for Game 6. And then Milwaukee for Game 7. That's how I had it mapped out. So Boston tonight for Game 5. They should have Rob Williams back tonight too, the Celtics. And then Game 6 will be Milwaukee. We'll see how everything plays out. And then, of course, Golden State and Memphis. I think it's a wrap tonight. No John Morant tonight for the Grizzlies. He's going to be out. He's out for mostly. For what we're hearing now, he'll be out for the rest of the playoffs. So, which means even if the Grizzlies win this series, which I highly doubt is going to happen, he's still going to be. The Grizzlies are done. They're going to win the gentleman's sweep tonight. I mean, they lost their chance to close things out in game to really come back in the series Game 4. In a game they led pretty much 46 or 47 minutes of the 48 minutes of the game, and they still lost that game. It's insane. So I got Warriors tonight closing it out, and they'll be in the Western Conference Finals. Joel Embiid is actually really upset about the MVP results. Of course, Nikola Jokic repeats as MVP this year. We spoke that on the podcast. A lot of the rhetoric out there too, especially about people saying that he got screwed, he got robbed, and I'll say it again, he was not robbed. I have not seen the results yet, but I imagine it is the closest race in the history of the association. There was no wrong answers here. You can go Embiid, you can go Jokic. I actually would have, if I had a vote, I would have voted Embiid myself. Embiid did congratulate Jokic on the award, but also didn't stop short of saying, I'll find a quote right here. Didn't stop short of saying, quote, if we're going to allow these types of people to vote for these awards, that's not fair. He's basically he's discrediting the whole voting process. I don't think it's perfect, obviously. I think some of these voters are pretty dumb. I'm not going to lie to you. But at the same time, it can't be a situation where you were the favorite to win and then a surprise came here. Most people would say if you got the pulse of the media, you got the pulse of what people talk about on Twitter, social media, most people would lean. It was obviously a mixed bag, but I would say a lot of people still say Jokic. I mean, the season he had. I mean, first off, I know Embiid he had to deal with the Ben Simmons drama. Did you get James Harden? All that, got help there. Nikola Jokic didn't have any help this year. I don't think he had another team in the team that averaged more than 50 points a game this year. He didn't have a Jamal Murray all season long. Michael Porter Jr. gets hurt pretty much the first week or two of the season, and they still managed to sustain to the 6th seed in the Western Conference. I mean, you got to give the guy credit there. Seriously, like I said, he was not robbed. If they voted Embiid, it would have been the right choice. Jokic, right choice as well too. I was saying on the podcast weeks ago that they should consider doing co-MVPs again. Why not? I don't see a problem with that. Split it. Screw it. You know what I mean? You can afford the 2 awards. It's okay. So, yeah, I get it. He's pissed off, but he's got to get over it. He should be focusing more on his situation and the fact that he's 1 game from elimination in his series against the Miami Heat. All right, Jeanie Buss also frustrated as well too. Jeanie Buss, the owner of the Lakers, obviously Lakers had a disappointing season. A season with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook did not even make the playoffs. They make the play-in, let alone the playoffs this year. Jeanie Buss is very frustrated with how the season went. She was quoted recently saying, "quote I'm growing impatient because we had the 4th highest payroll in the league. When you spend that kind of money in a luxury tax, you expect to go deep in the playoffs. Not you expect not to go deep in the playoffs. You expect to make the playoffs, especially too, let alone the play-in." At least make the play-in. The fact to make the play-in, and we know why it didn't happen. But the thing is, even with Anthony Davis injuries and stuff, the reason you bring Russell Westbrook to the team is because if you lose LeBron for a stretch of the year, or you lose Davis for a stretch of the year, Westbrook's supposed to patch that up. But the problem is, and this is why I think the this format's not going to work much longer. Or it doesn't work as much as it used to. Having the 3 stars and the rest of, 3 max players, and then the rest of the roster, just filling a bunch of veteran minimums and stuff. The reason why it's not no longer as effective, I think now, especially with this team, is I think teams now are getting smarter. Development's much better now. You got much more teams in the league now that are more filled out. I can't talk today. What's going on? That are filled out, better rosters. Look at the Heat roster, for example. Number 1 seed in the East. Jimmy Butler's a superstar. Yeah, I agree. He's a star. But they have a bunch of really, 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 really good role players around them too. Same with the Phoenix Suns. So, if you're getting LeBron James at age 35, 34, 33, you're getting AD for maybe say 5 more games a year, 10 more games a year, staying healthy. Yeah, the Lakers are a contender. But as I said last year too, I wasn't sure. I thought the Lakers would be a playoff team last year. But I always questioned the Westbrook fit anyway, and the Westbrook fit was bad. It's a bad fit. And the fact they I'm not saying LeBron James shouldn't have any input on rosters and on decision making, because I think your star players should have input, but he shouldn't be the final answer. And you saw here, he's the one that okayed the Westbrook trade. Okay, that did not work. Furthermore, the Lakers are in trouble because I spoke on the podcast last week. I think maybe a couple days ago. I think LeBron James is done winning titles unless he gets traded out of LA, because LA's problems with AD's injury history, the Westbrook contract was only 1 more year, but Westbrook is not a good fit. It's a bad roster, and I don't know if there might be a team out there who might take his contract for 1 more year, but I don't know what you're getting back in that at this point. They're in trouble. And remember, we're playing with the LeBron window, where the window is pretty much year to year at this point. Also, the league is getting better now. Teams are getting better. And you're going to have more teams now that missed the playoffs or who underwhelmed this year because of injuries are going to be back in the mix next year, like the Clippers and the Pelicans and whatnot. So the Lakers, even if they bounce back somehow next year, I can't necessarily call them a title contender next year because you got so many good teams in the league right now, and a lot of those teams are going to be pretty much the same for another year or two. Golden States and Memphis and Phoenix and whatnot, and the Bostons and Milwaukee's. LA's not better than those teams. Even if things changed and AD play better, yeah, they'll be a playoff team, but they're not going to be a champion. I doubt they'll be a championship contender at this point. Their roster's bad. It's a bad roster, and they're stuck. So really, to be honest with you, you got to try to find a way to trade Westbrook, get some pieces back. I don't know how it'll work. But then the other question now is too: do you consider trading LeBron? If you're trading LeBron James, I'm not saying you should, but if you're trading LeBron James, then you really have to. You're really at this point rebuilding. You know what I'm saying? Either keep AD or you trade AD. I mean, AD has some value still because of when he's healthy, he's one of the 10 best players in the league. But when he's healthy, and this is who he is, unfortunately now. So this is gonna be an interesting offseason for the Lakers and what they do. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Apple iPod discontinuing after 21 years of operating and making iPods. I used to have an iPod, obviously. I've had a bunch of iPods. I haven't used an iPod probably in about 10 years, maybe more. Once the Apple iPhone started, integrating all that stuff into their phones, there's no reason to have it anymore. I'm surprised it's still making it, to be honest with you. But Apple iPods are discontinuing now as of yesterday. So I don't remember what generation they are now, but obviously it's a pop culture thing. I remember having an iPod back in the day. I remember being the greatest thing since sliced bread. I remember having to take all my, and I was a guy that has music and CDs up the wazoo. So when I had to take all my CDs from my computer and then put up an iPad, or on an iPod rather, it was one of the greatest things in my life. Obviously things have changed even in the last 10, 15 years. From that. So rest in peace, Apple iPods, of course. Let's see here. So Eric Alford is a very popular Twitter social media user, mostly in the music sector. Likes to put up a lot of interesting topics and questions and whatnot on his Twitter pertaining to music, which I love, of course. So yesterday, I think he posted yesterday. He said he put the question about the question was which celebrity death made you cry. And of course, I went through a list. I actually forgot one person on my list, so I posted on Twitter. I want to show it here. Obviously, Michael Jackson, number one, Bullet, of course. That's number one for me. I also put Biggie Smalls when he passed away. I teared up for that one. Whitney Houston, when she passed away in 2012, I obviously cried for that one. Wrestling fan here, of course. So Macho Man Randy Savage when he passed away in 2011, that was a big one for me. That hit me to the core. Chris Cornell, when he passed away in 2016, I think it was 16 and 17. I think one of those 2 years when he passed away. That hit me, like a ton of bricks. And then the one I forgot, which I'm ashamed to even say this now, because he's one of my all-time favorite players, is Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant passed away 2 years ago. That one shot me not because of Kobe, but the entire scenario. I mean, not just him, but his daughter, and then some of the people on the helicopter was tragic as hell. So yeah, those are the for me the biggest impactful celebrity deaths I think I've ever went through. I'm missing anybody else on this list though besides that. I think I said Kobe. I said Biggie, Michael, Whitney. I think that's it. Let me see. I'm looking at the list real quick to make sure, because I want to get this right. Because I posted on social media. Sorry, Twitter's being a mess right now. I posted on social media yesterday about it, and I can't believe I forgot Kobe. I mean, I'm embarrassed by that, to be honest with you. I'm a big Kobe guy. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. Let me see here. So I think I found it. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, and Prince. That's the one. Cried when he passed away. So anyway, next one here. Do you guys remember Michelle Beadle? Michelle Beadle was ESPN for a long time on many of the shows, Sports Nation, NBA Countdown, and other Get Up before she left ESPN. She took a 2-year hiatus, a sabbatical, and call that. Was off social media for a little while. She's back now. She's working with Athletics. She has her own podcast now on there. And she's been making all rounds. And I didn't know she was back until I started seeing different pop-ups. She started popping on some of the podcasts I listen to normally. She popped up on the Sessions podcast with Renee Paquette. She popped up on the Ariel Hawani podcast 2-3 weeks ago. And it started popping on my YouTube. Because I'm on YouTube all the time, looking at content, watching content, creating content, you know what I mean? And Michelle Beadle, I've been kind of curious to see why she left for 2 years and some of the things. And some things she's talking about here, especially too, the biggest thing that she's been talking about really in the media was about how she was treated at ESPN and whatnot, and how some relationships she has were toxic. She didn't get along with Rachel Nichols when she commented on the Rachel Nichols thing with Maria Taylor, saying that Karma was a bitch, and basically saying that Rachel Nichols was insinuating in a way that Rachel Nichols was kind of the same way, treated the same way, or treated her the same way that that she was treated. Stephen A. Smith and her didn't get along. They had personality clashes, of course. She also spoke out especially about how LeBron James tried to get her fired from ESPN back in 2010, 2011 after the decision, the decision rather, and whatnot. She went into detail about that. Which by the way, back then, even in hindsight, now it made LeBron look so petty because she was very critical of the decision back then. Like a sport. Stop, dude. Why is LeBron taking? I mean, I know LeBron said to have an image and all that, but it was a bad look on his end, in my opinion, if it's true. But yeah, she's back. She's back doing a podcast. She's a little more low key now, not a big platform in the Athletic. Of course, Athletics lost a lot of money now, especially. But so how that goes. But it's good to see her back. And I actually like her. She's a fire starter. She's very quick witted and all that. I like. I don't mind her. She had moments where she annoyed me, but I'm glad she's back on the scene again. It was good to see her there. Let's see. The House Representatives today approved a $40 billion package to send to Ukraine in their war against Russia. This is, I believe, the third installment they've sent now. The U.S. has sent to Ukraine. Let's go to the Senate for a vote. I think next couple of days. Look, I'm gonna get a little political here, but it's okay. I obviously support Ukraine. Obviously want them to hold off Russia. We want. I've been saying that in this podcast for quite a while now, for the last couple months. But at what point is too much too much? Now, I know we're not going to send any, at least right now, are not sending any boots to the ground in Ukraine right now. That's because, number one, they're not part of NATO, so the U.S. is not trying to interfere with physically anyway. But they're sending money overhand and fist. This one, $40 billion. And again, I'll say this, and this is not a Republican Democrat position here. This is common sense. Where is this money coming from? Like seriously, where all is this money coming from? I'm like floored that we can just spend $40 billion and willy-nilly in this central country when we have all the issues here regarding inflation and homelessness and all the issues we have. You want to also, wipe away student debt. You also want to fix healthcare. And by the way, no one's talking about healthcare for the record. That's still not being talked about. Again, I mean, to me, if you want my vote, that's a winning issue. If Republicans can actually get on that issue and get on the right side of the issue, I would vote for Republican on that issue, but of course not going to do that, so it doesn't matter. But $40 billion just going to Russia, to Ukraine rather, and not even a blind eye, not even a thought about it. Like it's fascinating because again, we have our own issues here in America. I'm not trying to sound like a selfish prick here, but I'm just trying to be honest. This is the things that normal people who don't follow politics normally talk about. Okay, why is $40 billion just okay to go overseas, but then we have issues here with inflation? Like, riddle me that. It makes no sense. So just something to think about there. Anyway, finally, before I go, John Cena followed me on Twitter on Monday. I was kind of stunned. John Cena, arguably the greatest WWE superstar of all time. I say arguably because I think Austin and Hogan have a leg up on that one. Maybe we'll see. But John Cena also is, to me, I made it clear on the podcast. I think last month I put a clip out. Actually, recently, 2 weeks ago. Check it out on our Speaker Media YouTube page. John Cena quote: "Is he Mount Rushmore?" Which I believe he is. And he followed me on Twitter on Monday. Apparently he does this very, very common. Apparently he also follows my my co-host on Take 3 Wrestling, Mikey B, as well. Apparently he's a really good dude. Well, first of all, he comes out as a good dude, but talking to people that actually know him or dealt with him, he's a really good dude. He tends to just randomly follow people if he feels like they're worth following. So thank you, John Cena, for following me. I appreciate it. I mean, I didn't ask for it. I don't even follow you. I followed you back. I actually followed you back because you followed me, which is actually kind of cool. Yeah. I was wondering too. Also, did he get a wind of my 5-minute clip I posted on Twitter a few weeks back, defending why he is Mount Rushmore? So maybe he got a hold of that clip. Who knows? And maybe it caused him to follow me. I guess I don't know. But whatever it is, maybe. Thank you, John Cena. Appreciate it. And hope we get see you back in WWE Universe very soon. Hopefully see you soon. So anyway, that will do for today's podcast. Again, dated May 11, 2022. Again, I have the Bucks. I have the Celtics winning Game 5, and also have the Warriors closing out tonight in Memphis, in Music City. So again, I'm on Twitter at EJ Christian 7. Again, check out all the podcasts we've been doing this week. We just did In the Paint last night. Just dropped this morning. We did obviously a Football's Awesome episode yesterday. You got to check it out, ranking all the AFC quarterbacks. That was very, very fun, very, very controversial on with me, Zach, and Kyle and Mikey B. That was a very controversial episode. And like I said, we're going to continue these dailies as much as I can, and hopefully we'll see what goes there, at least through the playoffs anyway. We'll see what happens there. But until then, love you guys. Take care. Stay up. Treat people the way you want to be treated, of course, as always. And we'll talk soon. Later.